Honorable Helen Ajwa Ntosu, the spiritual bulldozer, all the way from Karachi. Thank you so much. We have all our assistants, deputy clerks here. Let's acknowledge you, assistant deputy clerks in the house. Thank you. Right. Okay, so we will have just a quick interlude from the cultural troupe, and then we can zoom in into the interactive session of the program. If the cultural troupe is ready, let's give them a big round of applause as they take over. Let's right, so we wanted to show you something else, but since we're having a bit of technical, okay.
Is to accelerate action.
For affirmative action, not just women actually, it's for gender.
Emphasizes on the need to expedite action.
The theme is to accelerate. If we don't move, our voices will not be heard. In front of us, but we are still climbing the ceiling.
No one can make you feel inferior.
Eyes telling you that you can make it.
Being focused, developing your capacity, and believing in yourself that you can do it. In your little corner,
who is a female? So we have achieved something, but still we need more women to come out. This is the time for a woman's voice to be heard. This is the time for us to bring up our girl child. This is the time to reach out and make women heard everywhere. I wish all women, from the farmer in my village, Obrachere, to the fishmonger in Senya Breku,
Abesu, Afiamai, Amobole,
Tantra, all the women in my constituency. A happy International Women's Day. I stand for women.
And I'm in support of the Affirmative Action Act. Accelerate action for affirmative action.
Thank you very much. Honorable Clerk, you have to do something for the men. We are being threatened day in, day out. Because if we send letters to Mr. Speaker, now they have a dispatch rider reading their letters and their requests. So if it gets there, it is pass. Otherwise, we have to find something to do about it.
It's to bring them at par.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, we'll invite the Deputy Minority Leader to introduce the next session, the Honorable Patricia Apeje. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Mr. MC and dear Ms. Ado. The Right Honorable Speaker, I stand on the existing protocols. I would like to thank you very much for a number of statements shared over here this morning. And if we had listened attentively to all the messages, I'm sure our women and our special guests and everybody here has paid attention and requires that taking the theme of this year's celebration into consideration, we'll have to take a decisive step to ensure the implementation of our Affirmative Action Act, which is also called the Gender Equity Act. Act, which number? 1121. Which year? 2024. Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to Mr. Speaker for teaching us this simple knowledge of the Act. And I'm sure everybody is going to take it very serious. For our next session, we have a number of speakers here, and chief among them is our lawyer, our champion, Mrs. Sheila Minka Premo. She is going to take us through how far the journey has been in trying to pass the bill into an act. So without much ado, I'd like to invite our lawyer, Mrs. Sheila Minka Premo, to share some few words with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, and all protocols observed. Good afternoon to you all, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to contribute towards this very important program. And I'd like to thank the Parliamentary Ladies Association and the Women's Caucus for giving me the opportunity to also make a few remarks during this very important program. So I'm here representing the Affirmative Action Law Coalition. Previously, it was known as the Affirmative Action Bill Coalition, which helped to push for the passage of the law. But as soon as the law was passed through the help and instrument of members of Parliament, particularly the Right Honourable Speaker, who really made this possible, and we would like to commend him for what he managed to achieve. We know that without his help in pushing for this law to be passed, I don't think it would have been passed in at the time it was passed on the 30th of July 2024. We'd like to commend all the members of the honorable members of parliament who also helped to push it, as well as the parliamentary staff who also supported in getting it passed. So the law it received parliamentary approval on the 30th of July 2024, and then it received presidential assent in September. It became law. It's a very important law because we're also marking the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. And as you've already indicated, or you've already heard from previous speakers, the Beijing Platform for Action came up with 12 critical areas of concern that all nations who were members of the UN were supposed to follow to ensure that there's progress when it comes to women's rights issues. And one of the critical areas of concern is on women in power and decision-making. And I believe that this law that was passed in 2024, Act 1121, is one way in which Ghana is to accelerate women in leadership and decision-making, particularly looking at demographics. I think you also heard this morning, a lot of speeches have been done, so I don't want to repeat some of the things which have been said already. In our last population census, it was indicated that women outnumber men. I think we're about 50.5%. 50.7%. However, if you look at a place like Parliament, which is supposed to be a microcosm of our society, the number there is very, very low. In the 8th Parliament, we had 40 out of 275 members, and currently the debate is whether it's 40 or 41 out of the 276. So it still hasn't really gone very far. I believe that at the time the law was passed, most of the major parties had already done their primaries, and therefore it didn't have the opportunity to have an impact on the primaries that were done. And we are hoping that for the next election, the provisions of the law would have taken effect for us to see a real change. Now, I've been asked to speak briefly on accelerate action for implementing the Affirmative Action Gender Equity Act. And you've already heard about the background to this law, that it comes out with a progressive way in which we'll be able to achieve inclusion and gender equity with time. In my view, Parliament has a dual role as far as what Parliament can do to try to ensure implementation of this law. It has a dual role of legislative making as well as an oversight role. And this gave them the opportunity from time to time to call various ministers to come and account for what they are doing and how far they are progressing in a particular area. So I'd like to highlight a few sections of the law which is very important that as honorable MPs you'll be able to push to get the law properly implemented. First of all, if you look at section 18 of the Act, that section deals with Parliament, and it looks more at the parliamentary service and committees of Parliament. So it calls on the Speaker and leadership of Parliament to ensure the progressive achievement of the gender equity targets in appointments to leadership positions and committees of Parliament as outlined. You heard the targets. From 2024 to 2026, the target is 30%. From 2027 to 2028, the target is then 35%. And eventually, by the 2030s, we will get to the parity, which is the 50%. So, honorable members of Parliament, particularly led by the female parliamentarians, it's very important that we have enough women in the various committees of Parliament, because that is where, because we have women underrepresented in the first place in Parliament, a very conscious and intentional effort has to be made to ensure that we have enough women as in the leadership of the various committees, which I think Honorable Speaker has already spoken about, because we need diverse perspectives to foster innovative solutions to our legislative processes. And we don't have one, it's not good to have only people of one gender taking most of the decisions. Again, when it comes to your oversight role, as ministers appear, we are hoping that you will take the opportunity to call on the minister responsible for gender, children, and social protection to ask about specific questions with regard to the implementation of this law. Section 4 of the law indicates that one of the key structures that needs to be put in place for implementation is a body called the Gender Equity Committee, and that they are supposed to lead with the implementation of this law. This committee will be based at the ministry, and it is made up of representation from various ministry departments and agencies, as well as people from civil society. Labor will be there, employers will also be there, some gender aspects, etc. will be there. One of the key responsibilities they're supposed to undertake is to come up with a plan of action to implement this law. One of the activities that this plan of action should include necessarily is for a baseline study to be undertaken from the time the law starts working to find out where the various sectors this law is supposed to apply to are. It applies to the executive arm of government. You heard from the Honorable Speaker of Section 14.2, which indicates the various areas where there's supposed to be gender equity. It also applies to the judicial service as well. It also applies to the private sector as well. So the baseline study, it's very important that it's done as early as possible to enable the ministry and then the GEC and those in charge to know where all sectors are at the commencement. That will give information to enable some assessment to be done by 2026 to see whether they've reached the 30%. I know that numbers are coming up, numbers of ministers being appointed, etc., etc. Appointments are also going to be made when it comes to state-owned enterprises, etc., etc. As the coalition, we are keeping tabs, looking at the numbers. But I think that it's very important that the GEC actually has put in place some kind of a computerized database system so that they'll be collecting the data. And when 2026 comes for the initial measurement, then they will know where they are coming from. Because we all can't just wait till 2026 and see where everybody is. We need to know where the starting was. Ideally from, let's say, if the law came into effect in September 2024, then from the following month, from the last quarter of September to see where various institutions are to guide in the measurements. Again, one key thing when it comes to all acts of parliament is that there's a need for a legislative instrument to be able to give lectures. The law also makes room for a legislative instrument to be enacted. This is, I believe, it's a ministry's responsibility, but I believe that they'll be guided by the Gender Equity Committee in getting this done. We need to get it done as early as possible because there are several laws which were enacted to sort of address gender issues to do with gender equity, which were not able to work effectively because of the absence of an ally. And therefore, we believe that this is also one priority area which the minister responsible for, the Honourable Minister responsible for gender, children, and social protection should be able to let Parliament know what is happening with regard to getting the ally ready. The law also makes one of the functions of this GEC the responsibility for formal sensitization of various sectors of the public to enable them to know more about this law. It is their responsibility as a formal institution, but I know that a lot of CSOs are also already started the process. But if the law gave this responsibility to the GEC to supervise this, it's very important that they are also in place and ready to do their work. So getting the GEC set up as early as possible is very important. We are in March. Almost 6 months have been lost since this law came into effect. And this GEC, from the monitoring the Affirmative Action Bill Coalition has been doing, we haven't seen it being set up yet. So it's very, very important that it's set up as soon as possible. Again, in the law, there's a schedule at the back. The 6th schedule has some provisions on how to achieve gender equity within Parliament. So the Act calls for systematic monitoring of the experiences of female members of Parliament and the parliamentary service. Tracking and analyzing these experiences will provide us with invaluable insights into systematic barriers and inequities that may exist. So it's very important that within Parliament itself, some structure is also put in place to see how to document people's experiences, to enable information and data to be collected for actions. I'm also of the view that as members of parliament and members of parliamentary staff, there's a need to prioritize gender-sensitive training. You also can't presume that because a person is a woman, the person is necessarily gender-sensitive. Gender sensitivity requires training to get it done. I know some, as I think has been indicated, ASEPA is doing a lot of work in trying to sensitize parliament. So it's very important that members of parliament have this culture where they understand what gender equity is and then actively participate in the creation of a more inclusive working environment and promotion of gender issues when it comes to lawmaking at all levels. And to facilitate that, we think that one thing that would help Parliament a lot is if Parliament is able to come up with a gender policy. Parliament is a key institution, and it needs to be guided by a policy so that when it comes to gender sensitivity, it has a document that guides it. So we are also hoping that members of the, honorable members of Parliament, particularly the Women Caucus, as well as the women's group within the Parliament will push to have a gender policy, which will help foster a gender-sensitive organizational culture where the parliamentary service as well as MPs, members of Parliament, will be intentional about gender inclusion and sensitivity. The gender policy should delineate a periodic gender sensitivity training for all, both men and women within parliaments. A gender policy would also ensure that there's a public commitment by Parliament to foster a gender-sensitive organizational culture that would empower, women and would also inspire future generations to engage in governance. I think when Honorable Doyo was speaking, she's talking about women and their role, both as members of Parliament as well as family. They have a lot of responsibilities. Our society, the gender division of labor in the home is such that responsibility for child nurturing is usually the responsibility of women. So far, I haven't heard of Parliament having maybe a daycare center where people of childbearing age could keep their children whilst they are working. That could be part of the things they could think about to make it easier for younger women in particular. When it comes to gender issues, as I think the Right Honourable Speaker gave a hint about it, gender is also intersectional. So not all women are at the same place. So you have women who are much younger who may need help with, child nurturing so that they can be free to be able to do their work. Older women also have their challenges. As you also heard, people who are aged also have issues. So we have women who also have disability, whose needs also needs to be taken care of. So if a policy is going to come up, we should consider all these things along these lines. Again, another key part of this law, which we are hoping that honorable members, particularly the females, will take advantage of, is Section 28 of the law, which criminalizes any act of gender-specific verbal attacks, hate speech, discrimination, sexual harassment, vilification, and stereotyping of women. So it serves as a robust legal shield against acts of victimization, discrimination, intimidation, protecting your dignity and ensuring an equitable work environment. As women in positions of influence, you have the right to a workplace free from gender-specific verbal attacks and stereotypes, allowing you to perform your duties with confidence and integrity. So this law not only criminalizes any undue influence that undermines the objective of this act, but also mandates that your voices be heard and respected in all decision-making processes. So those who like to troll members of Parliament, particularly the females, who may make even a little error, I think that this law can be relied on to go after them, to ensure that they are punished, because you don't want people to be gagged in the work that they are doing because they think that, because of the fear that, we all make mistakes from time to time. You don't want a little mistake a female makes to be overemphasized and it's on TikTok and everybody is making fun of it. A provision like this can be used to stop things like that. So by actively championing this law and seeking redress under the law by reporting to the appropriate authorities whenever anyone faces any of these circumstances, you can create an empowering environment that fosters gender equity and sets a precedent for future generations of women leaders in Ghana. We want to make the environment more friendly for our younger women to be able to come and not fear that if they come, the smallest error that they make, it will be all over and they become subjects of ridicule. So in conclusion, I'd like to make a call for action to accelerate gender equality in Ghana. I believe that this law is a tool which is a game changer for gender equality. It will help to accelerate gender equality in Ghana because it will ensure that women are at the table where decisions are taken. So let us rise to this occasion, hold ourselves accountable, and champion the cause of gender equity within the halls of Parliament and beyond. So I'd like to urge members of Parliament and all stakeholders, as well as parliamentary staff, to remain steadfast in implementing this law. We must not merely be satisfied with legislation on paper, we should make sure that it works. It requires dedication from all sectors of society, especially from female parliamentarians and parliamentary staff, as well as the male allies that we have in Parliament. We have a lot of male allies, and we should also rely on them to be able to help us now. It is time to accelerate action and demonstrate a collective resolve that women deserve to sit at the table where decisions are taken and should not be sidelined, marginalized, or absent from decision-making bodies or opportunities. As we reflect on this significant day, let us recommit ourselves to advancing the cause of gender equity. Let us ensure that the affirmative action, in brackets, Gender Equity Act, becomes a beacon of hope, not only as a law, but as a living testament to our dedication to creating a society in which women can thrive. I know that I can count on the commitment of all of us to continue this. So together, let us forge a path towards a future where gender equality is not a dream, but becomes a reality. So let us continue to stand together, support each other, and hold our leaders and each duty bearer accountable for the effective implementation of the Affirmative Action Gender Equity Act of 2024. So I'd like to end by saying again, Happy International Women's Day to each of us. It was celebrated on Saturday, yes, but it is still, I think we are still in the spirit throughout the whole of March. And then let us join the coalition. We have a small slogan where we say, implement the AA Act now. Implement the AA Act now. If you can join me to say it, implement the AA Act now. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. I'm calling on the next person, which is in the person of Mr. Bernard Koku Avle, who is the General Manager of City FM. I think we're going to have a media perspective of how we can promote the Affirmative Action Act. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right Honorable Speaker, I was expecting the next speaker to be Susan, my senior in media. I really don't know why I was invited to be here today. You know, and when I spoke to the, I think one of the clerks, she said, when you come here, you will know. Because I said, why are you inviting me? Because, you know, I haven't really championed gender properly. And as you can see, I'm a man. You know, but listening to all the speeches, I think I can now understand why. And I think there were two things that touched me when, as well, because I am also a father who is a mother. So maybe there are also single fathers who are suffering. So maybe they see my current situation as a way of understanding the plight of women better. And so for that reason, I'm very happy to be here. And I wholeheartedly endorse today's program. So that's the first thing I'll say. You can put your hands together. Second thing I'll say is that leadership is important. And I think all of us in the media see, and it's not because I'm here, but we can see the kind of speaker we have. And I was telling Rashid Rahman that we will miss him when he's no longer speaker. Because it's very rare to have a speaker who puts himself on the line to take issues head on. Very rare. And I think his life has been dedicated to public service in a very important way. Since he became minority leader very, very many years ago, And I think it's important for leaders not to show us just the example of their power, but also the power of the example. And I prefer the latter to the former. So we have the coercive power of states that we use to compel people to do things. But we also have the convincing power of leadership, where a leader can say that around me, I will use my influence to change minds. And I think in Speaker Babu, we have that. We are very lucky to have him. So that's number 2. I also like to thank the group that put this together, the female MPs and the women in Parliament, for coming together to bring all of us here. Because there are many, you may not have the coercive power of state, but you have convening power. And never underestimate that. Bringing all the women, Bank of Ghana, ECG, and I know there are many more who didn't get the chance to speak. You are showing leadership. You are learning from your leader and your speaker. So well done. Well done. So what is my role? I have 3 roles and I'll sit down. The first role is, as a single father, I have to start with my own family. Because a lot of problems you have in society is because people have challenges at home. So I'm lucky to have both sons and daughters. The way I raise them has to be in a certain mindset of gender sensitivity and consciousness. So if they are playing football and their sister wants to play and they kick her by heart, they are touching her. You don't have to touch a woman like that. You have to learn that a woman needs consent. You don't assume that because you are older. So a lot of our problems start from the home. And I guess now that I am playing dual roles, I can see a lot of things. So I like to say that the best gender advocacy begins at home, where you raise girls and boys in a way that does not skew them from the beginning. Because no matter what law you pass and how many prayers you pray, if the person is miseducated from home, it will be very difficult for him to appreciate the issues. So you don't need a microphone, you don't need a radio station, you don't need to be MP. You need to start from your home. So my first pledge is to start in my house. That's the first one. Second one, as a journalist, I have 2 powers. The first one I was talking about, convening power. I also have convincing power. Every morning between 6:20 and 10, I speak to the nation. In the people I empanel, in the choice of topics, and in the approach to the issues, I have a lot of power. And I think we have to use that power in a progressive way. And I speak on behalf of many media that we haven't done well in our empaneling, but we also haven't done well in even the structuring of the issues. Because as they rightly said, when a woman makes a mistake, we amplify the mistake. When a man makes a mistake, it's normal. We forget that by the time a woman gets to the position, it's probably 10 times better than a man. In fact, if you have a woman who's competing with a man in a position, she's mostly better. Because the man enters by right of birth. The woman has to prove that she's good. And so many times she's much, much better. And so this one is a pledge that will do better. There are times it's difficult to get women to empanel. So some of the women sitting in front of you, I'll be stressing you a lot. At the National Economics Forum, I met Minister for Trade. I had to pull her out. By the way, she was the only minister who actually sat in the conference for 2 days. 2 days. Now, I'm not saying this to slight any of the ministers. They were very busy. And she was the only female minister on the panel of 7. And she was the only one who actually sat and took notes and answered all the questions. And I pulled her for an interview. And I said, wow, you see, a lot of we, the guys, we assume we know. And yet, she's more effective. So I want to encourage those of you who are in women leadership that you don't need legitimacy. You're already there. You're already legitimate. You are much better than we, the men. Number 2, it's not easy to put you on panels. Abena Public Accounts Committee will be inviting you for on air. It's difficult. But those of you who are in leadership need to know that you are breaking glass ceilings for others. So you to be a bit flexible. Because sometimes when we are doing panel discussion, after our 2% budget tomorrow, all the programs are full of men. Because the women are not plenty. So you need to sacrifice and bend over so we can also put you on. Or show us other women to use. Not just from politics, but civil society as well. So while we pledge to do better in our paneling, we also urge you to make yourself available. You said to speaker, we are here. You are not just here, you have to be there on air too. So that we can, because you see, when you put a panel on a screen, you are sending a message. You are telling a girl that you don't deserve to be on TV, only men have to talk about economics. So you are not coming on air to present NDC or MPP. You are also coming to tell your daughters that you have a space. Do you understand what I'm saying? So it's not about whether the party has assigned you. You have to be there to change the picture of leadership. I think that's very, very important. So in my empaneling, I'll do better. And the last thing I'll say, Mr. Speaker, is that I also happen to be a manager of a media house. And I think that one of the things we haven't done well as businesses is that the workplace historically was created as a boys' club. So it did not, for example, as I stand here today, we have to go and pick our kids from school at 2 o'clock. We don't pay our wives for that work. But that common sense has entered my head because of my situation now. So we assume that everything is normal in the workplace. And I think we need to make laws that, for example, 3 months maternity leave does not make sense. I don't think it makes sense. Honestly. Like, Speaker, I'm sure when you met the then Comfordoyo's baby that she picked, that baby wasn't 3 months. Because when my mother gave birth to me, she was working at Medina Post Office. And she had 3 months maternity leave. So I was literally brought up in a market because she had to send me to a woman who was selling pots to come and breastfeed me in the afternoon for like a whole year. Because how can a woman with a 3-month-old baby work effectively? It doesn't make sense. So it's not about, I agree we have to change laws. But you see, the mindset of society is more powerful than the laws you make. If we don't change the way we think about the workplace, and as Speaker said, affirmative action is not women competing for equality. It is we giving ourselves a better chance. Because if a woman is smarter than you and she has to spend half of her time breastfeeding and you haven't created a work environment that accommodates her needs, you basically will not get the best of society. So it is in our own interest as a society to create a working space that is sensitive to the plight of women. You can't say you are proud of your mother who gave birth to you, and yet when a woman gives birth, she has to stop her work. A lot of women, they end their career because they get pregnant. In fact, they have to choose between pregnancy and work. That doesn't make sense. So the job is dual. We change the law, but we change the mind. And trust me, changing laws is easy. Changing mindset. So Sheila, your work has just begun. Oh. Because in Ghana, we are very legal. Legalese is easy. We do law. But the mindset of the people is more difficult to change, which is where we come in. So for us, our pledge is, as I said, number one, at home, we have to work with the mindset. Number two, on air and in our columns, we have to give them a better chance. But number three, as managers of private sector institutions, we have to have a more gender-sensitive work environment. This is just the... So on behalf of the men who are, I'm the only non-member man on the here. So I'm speaking for media men and other men and single fathers and all of us who are also going through parenting in a difficult way. We like to commend Parliament for showing leadership and thank you for inviting us and wish you successful deliberations. Happy Women's Day to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're going to have our last speaker in the person of Ms. Susan Aite, the Executive Director of International Federation. FIDA.
Do you want to hold or I fix it?
Yes. Right, thank you very much. I think that the speakers have touched on all the areas. But before I go on, I just want to say a very big thank you and a very deep appreciation to the Right Honorable Speaker, Alban Bagbin, for your gender-sensitive heart. And that runs through all the programs that, we are hearing is being actually implemented, in Parliament. We were talking about, the Child Care Center, and I overheard Gloria saying, oh, it's in the pipeline, it's in the pipeline. So I was going to talk about that. So I'm not sure whether my PowerPoint is ready, but I just wanted to just use 5 slides to really speak to it. Yes, and that is it. We are not going further than 5. But basically, I'm looking at, the benefits. We're not going further than 5. But basically, I'm looking at, the benefits 2023. And then this one, the same thing from Ghana Statistical Service, only 26 out of 86 government-appointed leadership positions were held by. If we make ourselves available, we will be located, we will be found. Now, if you look within the African context, women's representation in African parliaments has increased by just 1%. Just 1 percentage point. And these things are this information are very important for our advocacy. So if we have just 1, percentage point increase, then it means we have quite a long way to go. And, it's for me, I think it's quite, a shame for us as, a nation where our, first president, Kwame Nkrumah, was the first person who put 10 women in parliament. And that was the highest percentage we've ever got, over the years. And it's an indictment on us. When you meet with other people from other countries, they are amazed at the number of women we have, in parliament. And they always exclaim, are you talking about Ghana? Is this Ghana? So we really need to do a lot more when it comes to, getting women in decision-making positions. So I'm going to the last point. Africa has wide variations in women's participation parliaments. We all know about Rwanda, okay, 61%. And then we know about Ghana now because we are around 13. The 54 African states have implemented some form of quotas at the national or local level or both. Now, Rwanda tops, the list: South Africa, Namibia, and Mozambique. And the quotas have increased women's political participation. But there is also, a caveat that in countries like Eswatini, former Swaziland, yes, Swaziland, it hasn't worked well there, simply because the political will, has not been there. So we need the political will to make sure that this is effectively implemented. And so if we are calling now for acceleration, then we must know that if we have a speaker who is willing to actually accelerate, then we must also make sure that we are in the position to take, advantage of every opportunity that he presents, to us. Right, now MP, who is from Mauritius, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but who is from Mauritius, and now she had a baby, and she had no gave, her the opportunity to be able to breastfeed, her baby. And she kept, the breast milk that she pumped, in the fridge. And it wasn't working. So she had to move it, into the clerk's, actually, his fridge. And so you see, when it comes to caregiving, it's very, very critical that we place a lot of, emphasis and importance, to it. Now we are saying that, the men are dominating. They are the ones making the rules, but we need more women to be able to change these rules to be able to achieve parity. Right. Okay, so we all know what this is all about. Now, why is change needed? So I'm going to be ending very soon. Why is change needed? It's a matter of social justice. It's about democracy. It's about good government and participation. It's about equality. It's about equity. I don't really like the word equity, but I prefer equality. Because right now, CEDAW has actually come up with, a new recommendation to make sure that it is now 50-50 and not 40 or 30. So we are way behind. And I have an issue with the fact that, from 2024 to 2026, we are looking at 30%. And then from 2027, to me, is strange. I don't know how. How come we're able to get, 30 and 35? That's a very, very small I don't know how we are going to make that here, as well as, our many women. About human development, progressive development, yes, but we need to make sure that our women develop. Right, then it's about economic justice. And then about a strong economy. It's very, very critical, because if we are able to right the injustices, we can, improve our policies in many, many areas. I'll tell you one quick story about the planting for food and jobs policy of the past government. Now, the women somewhere in Upper East had the opportunity to engage with the then vice president. And because they don't grow the cash crops in there, they made a point that, listen, we don't grow these cash crops, which this policy actually benefits, and we're going to benefit more. We did that, and fortunately the vice president at that time listened, and then the policy, that time that they were in power, actually then captured their concerns, and they were also brought into, the policy. So it's very, very critical that we are very knowledgeable, and we can use that knowledge to really claim, our legal rights, right? And then we also have, it makes simple, common sense. It just makes common sense that if we have more women than men, we should have some form of gender parity, in every sphere, of our development. Okay. Right. I think we're going to skip this and leave it to you. So this is the last one I'm going to make. It says, we need to have role models. It's very important. And then we also need to make sure that this policy runs through every part of our, development systems: health, water, sanitation, legal rights. We've done very well with education, but there's more we need to do at the tertiary level. Policies and legislation must be adopted. People's need is very, very important. You find them little pieces of legislation, but we don't have, a law that actually defines, for us what sexual harassment is. Okay, so I think I'm going to end here, and then we would allow questions. Because there's quite a lot of things here, but because of time, and I think we've been sitting down for quite a long time, and this is important. So that's it, the quotas. 30%, I was looking for that. And then 27 to 2028, 35%, 2029, 50%. So we are looking at 50% in 2034. Wow. That's how many years down the line? That's why we are looking for 50%. And now, you and the CEDA is saying we are asking for 50% now. Right. Thank you very, very much for your attention. And we'll hear from you again, your questions and your answers.
Thank you very much. I think time is fast spent, ladies. The take-home point is that we are all part of the acceleration process. It is very important because the first speaker said you should hold duty bearers accountable. If you don't know, how can you hold them accountable? We've exposed you, and you know what to do to ensure that the right things are done. But because of the rest, I think you take it up from here. Then we'll have Hajia Lari, yes, as the first person to comment on the presentations so far made. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. All protocol observed. I am very grateful. I really appreciate the presence of all these colleague women that are here. In fact, the effort of the parliamentary female staff cannot be overemphasized. You have done well. You are marvelous. I have been here, and like you have heard, for 4 terms. We've continuously celebrated the International Women's Day, only in the chamber. Sometimes we cannot get even all the women there. But today, here we are, with even other associations from outside. What do we want more than this? But there is more to be done. It's left between you and me. I am here. Someone has already said that. I understand. I can do it. What about those who are not here? What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? So much has been said. We are tired. Some of us can talk and talk and talk, but we are already tired. However, can we be each other's keeper? Do we actually love one another? Are we sure we want women to progress? Are we ready to make sure that the acceleration takes place? Now, how many of us here, even we the MPs, can tell me what they are doing now that we are having appointments at our district levels, not only the district assemblies, but even the appointments? What are we doing to ensure that women are appointed? Please, even if your MP is not here, let them hear, even the men, that the 30% that we are talking about, although we are saying that is small. Look, even if we have it as tiny as an atom, we have started. It's better than not having.
Okay.
Let us start.
Thank you.
Let us see how far we will go. And let us be each other's keeper. When you see Honorable Haji Aladi making a mistake, do not think that after all, that is Honorable Haji Aladi. You are also a woman. So let us be each other's keeper.
Thank you.
The last thing, I know you want me to stop. You know I really talk. Though I'm not going to make it too long, I know the speaker is here. Last but not the least that I want to talk about. We all hold different positions, different outfits. When you see me as one of you. Wherever we meet, let us fight for one another. The pull down attitude must stop. The pull down attitude must stop. And let us not wait for the men. My sister, my leader already said it. Waiting for the men to give to us, hanging on. Today, the young girls, my boys have told me, say that the young girls want the men or the boys to have cars, to have their own houses, to live alone before they marry them. Can you stop that, please? Please. So for now, I will say the young ones, come to us. Let's talk. Listen to us. Get us involved. We shall support. Some of us are on our way out. 4 terms in parliament. I think that others may be able to make it 5 or 6. Some of us too may not be able to make it, but we can at least make an impact. And let me tell you, it's about you. It's about your interest. It's about your determination. It's about how much you can. I started politics in 1979, and I think I can still make it for another 100 years if I'm given. Thank you.
Well, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam, Mr. Speaker. All protocols observed. Okay, so mine has a link with what Bernard Avles said. It's my opinion. I'm thinking that the change will start from the home, basically. How we groom our children, how we teach them, and what we put especially in the minds of the boys. Bemensu. Or you will say Yeni B. And most of the times, how we even train our girls also. So when the girls are washing the bowls, the guys are supposed to sit somewhere. They don't do anything. They don't help. They don't participate in anything. They are busy and they are studying. I am asking, apart from what we do from the home, what can we consciously do as an institution to teach boys and men also to understand this? Because we create forum for women, women this, women that, women this, educating the women. And we have good women who enter into marriage and they marry, excuse my language, bad boys.
Okay.
So how can we also train the boys to understand that, you see, when you see a woman is this way, appreciate. When I was growing, one time in one of our classes, there was this guy who said, every woman must submit to me. I said, Masa, oh worry, I know I can. You see, and most of the men in our offices, they think that once you're a woman, you are here under them. When they say one, don't say some. When they are there, don't say some. And I'm like, where from all this notion? After first degree, after second degree.
Okay.
So what can we do?
Thank you.
Can we have International Men's Day?
No, come this way. Come this way. Come. Okay. Answer from there. Yeah. Yes, it's working now.
Okay, so I think that when Sheila was speaking, she talked about gender training. And I always say that if you want to do advocacy with people in, I think there's feedback. Yes, if you want to do advocacy really on that training before they really get what you are saying. And unfortunately, many of our men have been socialized differently. And so they will need to be retrained. And that's really letting them know that if you get to know about gender, you find a whole lot of things about gender which we are still actually exploring. The new information keeps emerging about gender. So gender is not also only about women, basically. It's also about men and then women. So we all need to be retrained. Maybe, for instance, we could start from even our education institutions to really make sure that we are doing proper gender training, at that level. So I really empathize with you, my dear. We've all been through it. Even when you are driving, say, can I come? He says, I'm taking the steering wheel and I want to drive. You see, to make it, and if I even probably older than him, he probably was, born when you were 20, that's when he was born. So he was in nappies when, you were even learning how to drive. So you've come across that all through your journey. And the best thing to do is to get people to be retrained. That's all. And sometimes even women some women don't have it. If you read about Margaret Thatcher, her biography, she actually, doesn't believe in affirmative action. She was sent to, political, meetings by her dad, and she just picked these things up. But every woman should pull herself by her own bootstraps. So there are women like that, and there are also men like that. So you come across them wherever you go. Yes.
Very much. Let's give a big round of applause. And of course, all our resource persons, thank you so much. Now, we will take the closing remarks from the speaker. After that, we'll have the vote of thanks, but we'll have a group photograph outside the speaker.
Please be seated. Of the Parliament, the leadership and members, the hard-working staff, thank all of you, inspired, not just by your presence, but also by your words. I felt so happy when I heard the story about the Minister for Trade and Industry. The dad was my senior, and also he took me like a younger brother. And he was in Parliament here from childhood. So the upbringing in the house is very key to resetting this agenda. I just want to emphasize that. I'm sad that a few of the ladies who were around that we could have used as role models have left. But there was one of them I will have pointed out to you who was a house cleaner in Accra here. After running away from her village, on her. And she's now very rich, well educated, and a member of Parliament. I also have when she came to tell me her story, and also to tell me her vision to get there. So you can do it. You don't need any man. What we're talking about, we focus on the women in power. It's not about pulling any woman up. No. The women are already up. And in fact, the women in terms of leadership are those who lead us. And traditionally, you all know, when we are in trouble, we say you have to go and consult the old lady. And we know in the house, those who are in control, managing as the men, and managing our children, are the women. And so we are not asking for anybody to pull them up. We are asking for people to acknowledge, to appreciate, and to make sure that they know that in spite of even the women leading us, they have decided humbly to make us equal. That's all what is happening here. And so I know about the Margaret Thatcher case, and I know in Ghana here we have a lot of women who are actually not gender sensitive. They don't want to hear it at all. And they are always encouraging the men not to allow it. That's because they know the women, because they themselves are women, and they know the woman. You give her an inch, and she will take a yard. That's not what we're looking for. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that we have had a very successful and fruitful discussion today that will continue to accelerate affirmative action for women's development. I talk about development in its totality. As we bring this year's celebration of International Women's Day to a close, let us leave here inspired and ready to take action. Today, we have reaffirmed our unwavering commitment to accelerating progress for women and girls in Ghana and beyond. We have reflected on the significance of gender equity, the transformative power of the Gender Equity Act, and the collective responsibility we all share in ensuring a future where every woman and girl can thrive. As we celebrate, we must also recognize that our journey is far from over. The Gender Equity Act is a landmark achievement, but its success depends on all its full and effective implementation. It is now up to us, leaders, policymakers, civil society, and every Ghanaian to ensure that its promises become real. The Act is a wake-up call to us all of us. It's not only for the leaders. If the leaders even want to lead properly and the followers disagree, there's no way you can lead properly. I used to believe in the maxim of Professor Stephen Adair that leadership is cause. Everything else is effect. Through practice, I've got to know that it is not wholly true. Followers matter. And that is why there's a call on all of you to try to understand what this act is about. As I've always said, a society that fails to empower its women cripples its own progress. And in fact, development in every society is measured according to the development of women. Oftentimes, we quote the words of our illustrious son of our land, the learned Dr. James M. Kwegyir Aggrey, that, and I quote, when you educate a man, you educate an individual. But when you educate a woman, you educate a nation, unquote. Let me use this opportunity to humbly draw on the full import of the quotation. The main aspect is always left out. Being one of the early liberation and gender activists, what he actually said is this: the surest way to keep a people down is to educate the men and neglect the women. That is the heart of the matter. They always leave this one out. But this is the foundation, the premises of what follows. The surest way to keep a people down is to educate the men and neglect the women. If you educate a man, you simply educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. And it's because we are slavishly attached to what our colonial masters tell us. That was a quotation they took, and that's why we followed up throughout. It's in literature, but this is the import of the statement, who led to the establishment of the Prince Charles College, now turned into Achimota. What are we doing? Those who understand Ga very well know the meaning of Achimota. Achimota. Which means be quiet in that forest. It was a sacred grove. You don't go and make noise there. Today, we have violated everything. This statement shows the transformative power that women possess, in that an upliftment of one woman will result in the upliftment of the whole society. Indeed, women are the very foundation of life. Biology. Logi means steady off. Bio means life. And women are the very foundation of life. We must therefore continue to challenge the barriers that hinder women's advancement. Let us break the biases, confront inequalities, and create a nation where women have an equal voice and take in decision-making, politics, education, and every aspect of life. On this International Women's Day, let us not only celebrate how far we have come, but also rededicate ourselves to the work that remains ahead. After they talk, after they act, what next? I take this golden opportunity to once again call the attention of the government and Parliament to the requirements of Section 14(2) of this Act. Section of Act. Very important to reset this nation. I know the President stated in his maiden State of the Nation's address that women currently make up 23.21% of his total appointments so far. I urge him to take a deeper look at the provisions of this Act again. My understanding is that the progressive targets set out in the first schedule as applicable to appointments in Section 14(2) are not a collective target, but applicable to each individual line appointment. I believe strongly that the right interpretation of that provision, when linked to the object of the Act, is to achieve 30% target in appointments into each of the institutions listed in the provision, and not lump all the appointments together and strike a percentage thereof. We started with the percentage of 30. 2026, 2027, 2 years. 2028 to 2027 to 2028, another 2 years. We know the realities on the ground. And so we are starting from 30. We know within that period, we can realistically move about 5%. That is what went into, Madam, that is what went into the percentages, realistically. But now when you look at from the 2029 to 2034, how many years? Are you sure? Inclusive. Inclusive. It's 6. So you see that one has moved from the 35 to 50. But then we have gotten the basis and strong foundation to push faster. That's how we looked at it. It was really deeply debated. And I was personally involved in going through this. And I'm happy the chairperson is seated at the back there. She was chairing the committee, Honorable Helen Ntoso. She's seated back there. We did a lot of calculations and made sure that we put in place realistic, achievable targets so that we can hold them. And I can assure you that what she told you about the child-friendly facility, down there where we have the bank, we have moved them. They are going to a different place. And we are linking that, all that area for that facility together with the expansion of the medical center. The medical center, we brought a lot of equipment and machines, but we don't have space. So that's why we're moving the bank away. And so we put all there. And we have a lot of medical officers now to be able to attend to the medical needs, and particularly that of our women and children. So we're working seriously on that. And for leadership in Parliament, very soon, the women will take all over. Apart from the clerk, who is here, the next, we have 2 deputy clerks now. One is a gentleman. Only 1 gentleman out of 4 of them. And after the assistant deputy clerks, we have the senior principal assistant clerks. I think there are about 9. And they are all women.
There's one gentleman.
One.
Just one gentleman.
No. We have not reached there yet. We've not reached there yet. And so we have gone far, and we started it a few years ago when I changed the organogram of Parliament and created some of these career progression steps. And so that is what has brought the women's spirit in Parliament very high. And I love my sweet voices of democracy, which is populated mostly by ladies. And so a lot is being done by Parliament, and we in Parliament want to take the lead. I believe strongly that if we led and interpreted the provisions well and implemented them, we'll be able now to have the moral authority, charity beginning at home, to hold the other arms of government accountable. Because not only the executive, even the judiciary, if you go through the act, we stated it, and all the agencies. So the provisions as stated must be applied strictly to achieve the true object of the act. Doing this will reaffirm our true commitment to empowering women and developing our nation. This act presents an ideal opportunity to right the historical injustices done to women. Let us not miss out on the opportunity to remedy this wrong. The heart of the matter in affirmative action is developed. We should not lose it. I've been reliably informed that building upon the legacy of the Act, the ladies in the parliamentary service are setting up a women association to support each other in their professional development and social welfare. This is a laudable idea that I will fully support. And I encourage every female staff to actively participate in whatever will lead to the actualization of the vision of the association. The association should go beyond support and encouragement of the staff of Parliament to connect with women groups and associations all over the country to leverage the synergy to ensure the total and complete implementation of the provisions of this Constitution, 1992, and the Equity Act. It is often said that women, and we've heard it here, can be their own enemies. That's what they say. But it is also said that the strength of women lies in their voices. Thus, with a united voice in this association and the interconnected bodies, which you can develop. The name of the ladies, the Christian network, Ladies in Parliamentary Service, LIPS for short. Yes. Ladies in Parliamentary Service, LIPS for short. LIPS for short. I'm very sure you'll be able to exploit everything that we have put in place here and get all. Luckily, we have some of the associations here with us. So please, just kindly link up with LIPS, and then you are gone. I thank you all for your presence today to continue the advocacy and unwavering commitment to accelerate action for the implementation of the Act. It's a positive indication of where our nation is heading towards. To our young girls, I say dream big, break barriers, and seize the opportunities before you. To my fellow men, I say be allies in this fight. Gender equality benefits us all. My mother had men. The first was a girl. The rest following were men. She had 9. I was in the middle. And so I had to be a babysitter. That's how I grew up. with my heart being with children and women. That is the beginning, from the beginning, which is the family. Gender equality benefits us all, not just women. Let us go forth, and after the celebrations, affirmative action in reality. Thanks to the Women Caucus in Parliament, and also thanks to LIPS. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Please, let's repeat.
As all, not just women. Let us go forth, and after the celebrations, affirmative action in reality. Thanks to the Women Caucus in Parliament, and also thanks to LIPS. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Please, let's repeat the acronym again. You saw how Mr. Speaker did it. You saw how he did it. Let's all rise and do it better. Let's all rise. Let's all rise. Again. Again. Thank you so much. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, let me acknowledge the presence of the second deputy speaker. Please, let's have some order. Please be seated. Thank you. Pleased to announce the presence of the second deputy speaker who joined us at some point. Let's show him some love, the Honorable Andrew Esiama. The Chief of Staff to the Speaker of Parliament. He's a celebrated historian. The Honorable Kofitv, please, thank you. Oh, Mr. Speaker, you are the only one with the charter. You are the only one with the charter. Thank you. Next, we have the Member of Parliament also for Savelugu constituency, the Honorable Abdul Fatia. Thank you so much. We have introduced the ladies from the Bank of Ghana and the Power Queens. I think we have closer ladies as well. Let's get up and let's acknowledge you. Civil Service Ladies Association, right? Right. Thank you so much. We also have the ladies from the Food and Drugs Authority. Where are you? Please rise and let's acknowledge you. Right. Yours is what? Yours is what? We are LIPS. You are what? Okay. Right. We also have ladies from the Atomic Energy Agency. Where are they? Okay. Thank you so much. And all the others we couldn't acknowledge. Thank you. At this point, I'd like to invite Rashida Edem Abdul to properly give us the vote of thanks. Let's show some love.
Thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, before I bring the votes of thanks, permit me to share a few light on the qualities of women. I'll be brief. Women are pearls to cherish, smooth and lustrous with nacre to protect themselves. Women are precious to uphold. They are confident to initiate and irritate. Women are beautiful to admire, always there, hardly abandoning, hardly leaving. Steadfastness, their hallmark. Thank you very much. Finally, we've come to the end of this program, and it's appropriate to acknowledge the input of some individuals and the efforts that others put in place for us to come this far. First of all, let me express our gratitude to God Almighty for the grace and strength to put this program together. The Right Honorable Speaker, what more to say to you? Thank you for championing the cause of women in Parliament and outside Parliament. Thank you for all you've done for us, the consultation, the back and forth to put together this program. We are grateful and God bless you. To the leaders of parliament, you didn't abandon us in this cause to have this program. You stood by us, you advised us, and you supported everything we brought to you for this program to see the limelight. Thank you very much for your support and your advice. We are grateful. He's asking me what Senyala Chichito means. That's between me and him. To the Women Caucus, thank you for your collaboration. Your two leaders were very instrumental in putting this program together. To the panelists, thank you for giving us your time and opportunity. Thank you for shedding light on what women need to do and what our act is about. God bless you for coming, and God bless you for exposing us to what we didn't know earlier on. The women associations present, the Bank of Ghana ladies, the ECG ladies, I can only mention a few. Thank you for gracing this occasion. You hear from us. There is more to come, we promise. Now to the ladies in parliamentary service, LIFS. Thank you for gracing this program. Thank you for coming out in your numbers. Thank you for pulling colleagues along, and thank you for making this program a success. Not forgetting the women of parliament as well, the female coming. We appreciate your effort and we appreciate your advice. To the organizers of LIFS, Madam Gloria, Auntie Abigail, Mouse, myself, Auntie Jessica, Auntie Amanda, thank you very much for putting this program in place in just a short while. 3 days, we're able to achieve this. God bless you and may He strengthen you. Auntie Kate, forgive me. Finally, to everybody here today, Mr. Speaker, you may not know this, but we have gifts. Gentlemen in parliamentary service. We are helping them to form that association. To the gifts in parliament, thank you very much. We appreciate you. And finally, to myself, may God bless me as much as He blesses you for this association to come to the limelight. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rashida. We're so grateful. So, ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. The ushers are going to come around and usher you out. So if they do not come to your side, please remain seated. Maybe you would leave the hall with the Right Honorable Speaker. So please remain seated until the ushers have come to you. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point we'll have the closing prayer, after which the Voices of Democracy will lead us to sing the patriotic song, Yenara Yasaseni. Let's invite the Honorable Zuwaira Ibrahim, a Member of Parliament for Selaga South, for the closing prayer.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Speaker. Please, can we be upstanding to say a prayer? We give thanks to the Almighty Allah for a successful event. And as we wind up and head back home to our offices, to our various activities, we pray that His grace and favor will continue to follow us. We pray to Allah to continue to endow us with the wisdom, guide us in our ways, guide us in our footsteps, in order that we can do our best to meet the aspirations of the people of Ghana. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Maliki Yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in, Idina Siratal Mustaqim, Siratal Lazina An'amta Alayhim, Ghayril Maghdubi Alayhim Waladdallin. Amen.
Please remain standing. All movements should cease, please.
So
Sebeyeyo, Sebeyeyo, Enesena, Se, Oma for Brown. Thank you very much. Please be seated. The ushers will usher the MPs out. The MPs, please. Yes, Mr. Speaker will join you. We want, the place has been arranged for the photograph, so the MPs will move first. Let's have the assistant deputy clerks also follow. The executives, current or interim executives of LIPS would follow. Let's have the Bank of Ghana ladies. Let's have the Power Queens. The ushers, please help me with that. Let's have the Power Queens. Let's have the, yes, another one will take the Closac ladies. Energy ladies.